Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that, for those reflections. Anyone else who have discovered something different from what we have just discussed now? Any other one who has seen things differently? What about curriculum concept that we are trying to discuss so that you get familiar with them? How are they positioned in this paper? Have you seen any one of the concept, any of these concepts coming through? And yeah, yes, Tembelihle.
I came across a part where it said students should shift from using formal education technology to informal one. And there was a part that says student needs to draw from both the performance and competence-based curriculum as it helps them to use Zoom pedagogically to address their needs. So they should like apply both the competence and performance curriculum.
Yes. Okay.
And there were types of reflections that I came across where students interrogated their practices, whereby they use formal reflection, informal reflection, and non-formal reflection.
Okay, so now we have seen the new terms that are used by other authors, coming from the vertical reflection, horizontal reflection, diagonal reflection. Now we have new terms again, which is formal, non-formal, and informal.
Non-formal.
Yes.
Okay. And I also came across this theory, which was connectivism. It was the first time I heard of it.
Okay, connectivism theory.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, how is it different from other theories that you have seen?
It's not that different, but I see it's highlights both the needs of students having access to hardware and software for them to have like an effective e-learning system. So it's highlights the needs of students.
Okay, thank you then. Thank you, Tembelihle. Vinay, you said you are using the wrong term when you say knowledge dissemination. Why do you say it's wrong?
Because with regards to the knowledge and seeking of knowledge and skills, it is not. It's not where it's not aligned vertically where it's content based. It's seeking to. It's empowering the learners to seek their knowledge, to seek creativity. And it would be almost as if it's leaning towards outcome based, but it's not outcome based. It's like you seek the knowledge, you find your knowledge, because you do not necessarily have to be the knowledge have to be imparted to you.
Okay. Oh, okay. So in other words, you were using the language of pragmatist, trying to avoid using the language of a performance-based curriculum.
Yes.
Okay.
It's both.
Yes, because remember, when you say something is wrong, the question will be wrong to who? You see, we need someone, because for professionals which are interested in performance-based curriculum, they will enjoy that language, you see. So you may not be wrong when you are talking to them, when you have people who are in favor of that language. Therefore, in your case, then you highlighted early that no, I want to use a neutral language between performance-based curriculum and competence-based curriculum, which is about the need of the people, and then reflect from there, then you start to deal with the issues. When they need competence-based issues, you bring the strength of that. When you need a performance-based curriculum or issues, you bring the strength of performance curriculum. I think that's what you were trying to drive at, where you are putting a neutral language of dealing with the things. So you see now, you are now starting to understand how you should now start to reflect on yourself. And then from that reflection, you build the new you. So when you build the new you, you come with a certain language, because now you understand what these formal or vertical reflections are about, and at the same time you understand how which is informal or horizontal reflections are capable of doing. So when they are capable of doing, you are aware of that. So it's that awareness that you are expecting, because that awareness of using these as taxonomies, you take the strength of this and the strength of this. But what should be happening is that you need to read more on them, so that you will always use them according to their strength, because each one of them has its own strength. And then, but if you use it according to its weakness, that's where it will really harm your process. So the articles then that I sent you, I wanted you to read them so that you can see how we position a curriculum concept, and then using different theories. As we have seen that in our last discussion, we used TPEC, which is technological, pedagogical, is technological, pedagogical content knowledge, which we used for decolonization. So whatever you use, whatever theory you use, because these theories, remember, these theories are not the truth, but they are just our user interface to drive towards objective reality about ourselves. So when people used these theories, they used them based on their experiences and conducted research, and then started to declare that here is what I've used, and here is what other people have used, that help them to monitor or to control their objective realities. They did not know their objective realities, but they were able to control their reality. That's why they survive. That's why they are happy. That's why. So whatever then you experience, you need to now reflect on it and base it on some theories that are useful to you, so that it will be easy for you to start to understand you more. You understand yourself more. So this presentation then is based on those two papers then. So the first one being that the one that was written by Mpungose and Khoza on the students' reflection, how we wanted to understand the students' reflection in terms of using Zoom, because Zoom came when everyone was still shocked to say, what is happening here? Then Zoom came through to help us to teach even during the time of lockdown. So we did not stop, we continued. But continuing like that with that tool, we wanted to understand what students and lecturers experience about that. So then you will have to read more then on this paper if you have not go through the details. You will just have to go through details so that you see how students were treated in terms of learning through Zoom video conference technology. So this paper then is based on 3 forms of reflections, as you indicated already, that there are 3 forms of reflections, which is formal reflections, which is in line with what we call performance-based curriculum. At the same time, we also know that we know another language, which is vertical reflection. When we do our activities, we may reflect vertically, which is formally, which come with prescribed activities. So when we reflect there, we reflect on, because things are there, so we reflect on what is written. And then reflecting on those activities that are written there, it will then bring us to a stage where we start to say, we are aware of performance curriculum that is pushing this kind of, this form of reflection. On the other hand, we have informal reflection, which is driven by competence-based curriculum. So in competence-based curriculum, it's about to reflect in, because we reflect on what is happening now, not necessarily going back to what is written by researchers. So when you reflect on is when you have something written down, then you reflect on, which is of performance-based curriculum. But when you reflect in is when we are reflecting on something that is happening now, according to the people that are around you. But you move to a stage where you have non-formal reflection. The non-formal reflection, it's about reflection that will lead to something new that you will start to deal with. So in other words, you reflect in order to plan. You go inside yourself and then reflect within yourself so that you build the future in what you are doing. That's why you have these 3. And then the main issue here in this paper is that we discovered that a digital divide was the most important issue here, where other students could not have access to technology, others were doing well with the access, etc., etc. So when they were doing it like that, you could see how they were divided into 2 categories, those who were unable and those who were able. But then the university started now to give the data bundles to those that were, in fact, to all students. Data bundles went to all students. So even those who were struggling in terms of data, they were able to benefit from what was happening there. Then what is of interest then is to bring back this table to say, remember when you read curriculum, it's about this particular concept, which is, these are a curriculum concept. That's why I bring them all the time, because curriculum, if you want to understand curriculum, you need to understand each of these curriculum concepts. Once you understand them, whatever curriculum that is in front of you, it will be easy for you. Whatever approach that you are dealing with in education, they will be easy, because even the theories that you have are drawing from this concept and then position them in a new way. So when they are positioned in a new way, we'll start to say this is a new theory. Nothing is new in education anymore. All these things were discovered long time ago, but it's a matter of positioning these different concepts in a way that will be new, in a way that will be able to help certain individuals to learn, or to learn better, or to do their activities better. So these concepts you can see, because other theories will be talking about objectives, others will be talking about assessment, others will be talking about, but when they position them, you may think that it's a new theory, yet it's not. It's just that you are not aware of how these curriculum concepts were positioned. So in the papers that you have right now, they are positioned. These concepts are somewhere positioned in such a way that they are making life easier for those who were part of the study. And then look at this connectivism theory. If you look at connectivism theory, you can see from there that the concept that you have seen, in other words, if you go to this concept, we can identify the areas where they were pushed in as part of our daily teaching activities. So this theory then by Siemens came with this theory in 2004 to say, this is connectivism theory. Connectivism theory, it's a theory for digital age. So in other words, when this digital technology started, Siemens indicated that we don't have a theory that is in line with what the world is doing about using technology. So as this theory came handy then. So what does that theory say? It has 8 principles. Principle number 1, it says learning and knowledge rest on a diversity of opinion. So the moment you talk about opinion, remember in competence-based curriculum, we use opinion of other people to do what we do. So we do that as a group. Therefore, this principle, you could see that it was just describing community, which include our colleagues, include our students, etc., all those who are involved in that teaching and learning process. So that's what, in terms of the concept that side, it's called grouping or community or something like that. But in other cases, others will bring the issue of accessibility. Then they'll say, who is accessing it? So which means they are still talking about community that access that education. Then when you look at number 2, principle number 2 of connectivism, it says learning is the process of connecting special nodes or information sources. So that is the content, because what is happening now is that you have school knowledge, which is formal content that is prescribed. It's called specialized node. Those specialized nodes are giving us prescribed content. Therefore, that principle is more of content. It's talking about content. It will, number 3 will say, learning may reside in non-human appliances. You can see there, it says that learning may be facilitated by hardware and software. These are resources. Talking about resources, hardware, software, or teachers using ideological way resources. Then it will continue to number 4 to say, the principle number 4 of connectivism says, the capacity to know more is more critical than what is currently known. So which means what you have right now may not be important, but what may be important for you is the goal that you are trying to achieve. So this one is talking about the goal. So active students here that were participating, they were moving towards specific goals. So those goals, then we have a concept called goals in terms of our curriculum concepts. And then number 5 would say, connections need to be nurtured and maintained to facilitate continual learning. Who will do that? is the teacher role. When the teacher is keeping the connection between university and students, then students will be able to learn and then achieve the learning outcomes that they should achieve. So that's the teacher role there. How the teacher role will work, then how teachers will do, it's up to them, but their role is to make sure that universities are doing what they were designed to do, and then students are doing what they should be doing, etc., etc. And then number 6 will say ability to see connection between fields, ideas, and concept. It's a core skill. Therefore, you need to have a certain environment that will be able to help you. But mostly then, in this paper, we even brought in the issue of formative, summative, and peer assessment. So as to indicate that that environment should have something that, but it's environment that you create anyway, so that you understand. If you go to leadership, you talk to people from leadership and management, they will, when you talk about performance-based curriculum, they will be talking about instructional leadership. You see, you know the other field now. If you go to research, they will be talking about positivist paradigm. Then when you talk about competence-based curriculum, you go to leadership and management, they will be talking about transformational leadership. And then when you go to research, they will tell you about interpretivist paradigm. No, we are using interpretivist paradigm. You see, all those are just the terms that are used by other fields, but they mean the same thing. So once you understand what performance curriculum is about and its principles, basic principles, you can go to any field, or you can interrogate any idea, or you can interrogate any concept, because you know, if it is coming from a performance curriculum, you'll know exactly that, oh, these are fans of performance curriculum. Then if you are not ready to discuss issues with them, then you avoid them. Then you go to the other group when you discover that they are more of influenced by competence-based curriculum, and then they will keep on, if they are doing research, they'll tell you about interpretivist paradigm, or sometimes a little bit of critical paradigm. So you know how these things are happening. So when you then go to issues of pragmatic curriculum, you go to research, they will use the same term, pragmatic paradigm. If you go to leadership and management, they will tell you about ethical leadership. You see, you can go anywhere once you understand your curriculum concept and their principles. They are small. So if you know performance-based curriculum, then you should know the basic of what that curriculum is about. The first thing that you need to understand is that everything is prescribed somewhere. So if you talk about resources to use in managing your school, they are prescribed somewhere. Go to the department document, they are prescribed. This is what you should be doing as the principal. If you're a principal, if you're a school principal, you should be doing A, B, C, D. All these things are written down. But if you take, if you're a fan of competence-based curriculum, you'll use transformational leadership. Transformational leadership, you know the basics there is that you use democratic rule. So you don't have something, but you'll expect your staff to give that to you, and then you work according. So you need their opinion, and then you follow that opinion. But the instructional leaders, they will always say, which document are you using to lead your school? Which document are you using to teach? Which document are you using to act? So whatever you do is prescribed somewhere. That's basic those are basic principles of performance-based curriculum, that everything is written down, then you use it from there. But on the other side, because they are dealing with opinions are not written down, but whosoever is there may give, and then we take according to that. So principle number 7 of this theory will say currency is the intent of all of connectivist learning activities. So these are just about learning activity and time. The timing that this study was conducted in the past 20 years. So it's no longer under the category of currency. So that's why we end up saying use recent studies that are not older than 5 years. So then you come to that. So those activities that you use, they are limited in terms of time. And then we also have the last one, which is principle number 8 of connectivism. It says decision-making is itself a learning process. So in other words, what you may see today as true, it may be false tomorrow. Therefore, you should keep on assessing what you have. So the principle there, or the curriculum concept that is driving that, is that of assessment. How assessment is helping you to keep on learning. So where you bring your self-identity as part of that, you learn about yourself, you understand yourself, and then the decision that you'll make, they will be based on the real experience rather than from what you heard from other people. So the process of finding one's identity, it's important here. Through assessment, we can achieve that, because we can use our peers to assess us, to say, this is the thing that I've been doing, then they will assess it. Like when you see these publications, when you publish a paper, you write a paper, you submit to a journal, and then there will be at least 2 specialists in your field who will read that paper. If they approve it, which means your paper will be published. But those 2 will be independent in terms of reviewing your paper, and the third person who will review it will be the editor of the journal. So 3 people at least have gone through your paper. But other journals may use about 6 people to review papers, and then so when your paper is approved, then that's when it will be published. So when that is happening, it's helping you now to grow, because it's like we are writing exam. When you publish a paper, when you write a paper and submit it, you are writing an exam. So the content that you send in that paper, you are giving it to other specialists in your field to read it and make sure that at least this is the content that is helping us to come closer to our objective reality. Although we may not come at the same pace, we may come different way. But here is the theory then that maybe it may be of your interest. If you don't want to use TPEC, which is technological pedagogical knowledge, in that paper of decolonization, you may use this one as well, which is a connectivism by Siemens. So that is part of the theory. So in this paper, then we propose that teachers' network should be something like this. So where you are aware that you are connected to other teachers, which are your colleagues, you are connected to media, popular media, you are connected to photo sharing. So anything you touch today is connected somewhere. Therefore, people can just trace you and can track you and see where you are, who you are. So if I can just type your name, maybe somewhere in Google, I can come across maybe your picture or whatever the case may be. So that indicate how teachers are connected today. So network is long today. So what then the paper is proposing that universities should try to have policies that will guide their distribution of data, of data bundles, recorded lecture, etc., and then train students to use these things because they are there. We can't go back anymore. That's why today we have this Zoom lecture. It's because it's working to our advantage in a way. Because if it wasn't for it, you were then going to come to campus and attend the whole 2 weeks. But now that you have this situation, is user-friendly, you just connect it to your computer, and then connectivism theory is helping you to do that because you are connecting. When you are connecting, then it comes like that. So the main issue then is the planning of this digital technology, how it should be working, and then it should work to our advantage. So that is that about this paper of on students' experiences. That's what student experience. Where they were frustrated because there were some issues that were not covered by the university. So this one too, it's more on lecturers than students, but the previous one, it was more on students than lecturers. So, but here, this one is taking the side of lecturers. So where you hear the stories of lecturers, what they were feeling about that. So in your reading, you should read both. If you want the side of the students, how frustrated were the students, and then after frustration, what happened? They transformed. When they transformed, then they started to have new realities. They started those new realities. So now in this one, then lecturers reflected as well. It was a mixed method shaped by pragmatic paradigm, and then method of data generation where focus group discussion, semi-structured interview, and then observation. So you can see then here with this method of data generation that there were questions of there were questions that are addressing different issues, because when you observe, you are addressing how people do what they do. That's observation, because you are able to generate first-hand information about what they are doing. But if you try to ask them how they do something, you may miss what they are doing and give you something else. Then, but if you want to know why are they doing what they are doing, then semi-structured interview is the best, because all what you do, you come with certain questions, and then you paraphrase those questions. You keep on changing those questions, and then you add more questions in order to confuse them. Once you confuse them, they will speak from their subconscious mind. Then you'll understand their objective reality. But if you go there formally and ask them one question and allow them to reason, you are not going to get what you want to get. All what you'll get is a reason for why they are doing what they are doing. They'll just give you what they think you need. But if you confuse them nicely, because remember we said we use subconscious mind when you are excited or when you are upset, or when you are fast asleep, or when you are drunk. Those are 4 conditions where subconscious mind can be seen very clear operating. But if someone is reasoning with you, so someone is trying to reason, he may avoid all the questions that you are trying to pose there. As a result, you may write a story that is not closer to the person is reality. So in this case, then we decided to have observation for first-hand information on what they were doing, observing them. Number 2, for why they were doing what they were doing in terms of their transformational experience. We had to use semi-structured interview, one-on-one. And also there are those of them who are good when they're in group, those that are influenced by competence-based curriculum. They enjoy being in groups. So they talk too much when they're in groups. Therefore, we had to bring them in groups, the 20 of them together, and interview them again while they are together. And then you also had to go one-on-one, because there are those who are shy when they're in groups, but when they are alone with you, they can start to tell the story. So we had to do both. We had to do both, which is semi-structured and focus group discussion. That's what we did there. And then they were purposely selected using convenience sampling. So we wanted lecturers from UKZN, there were 20, and then so we wanted 20, but there were more than 20 who were around there. Therefore, we had to use convenience sampling. We took those that were most accessible. In other words, those that were our friends, who were easily accessible, who could talk to us and then indicate the real experience they had, you see. And those who were also talkative, something like that. So that's what we called convenience sampling. You take the most accessible ones after we have purposely selected them. So that's what happened there. So the issues then of transformation experience were around the reflection, which we discovered that they were around reflection, translation, rotation, enlargement, and reduction. What is reflection then? Reflection is when people reflect on their past experience and then deal with it. At the same time, they may reflect on what is happening now, and they may reflect for what they will be doing in future. That's reflection. So a practical example is when you take a mirror, you look at the mirror will show your reflection. But what you see in the mirror is not you, but it's your reflection. Because when you kill someone that you see in that mirror, he's not going to die. But you are saying, that is me. That's not you, but it's your reflection. So what we have is our reflection. Where we are, we don't know, because our bodies are just reflecting us. They show our reflection, not us. Therefore, that's what we are trying to do. So with reflections, then, when you reflect, then you go back and find out about yourself, who you are, how you come to where you are today. And then there's another process of translation. Translation was also discovered as one of those principles where people decided to stand from the position of performance curriculum and translate things. When they move from there to a position of performance curriculum, while they were in the position of competence-based curriculum, when they move, then change the position, they see something else. So the good example of that is that when you stand on the mountain and look at a house which is below the mountain, and then the other person will go down straight, look at the same house, translate the same house from the bottom of the mountain, you see different things. If I can say, draw this, your drawing will be different. But the question will be, why do you have something different? Because we are observing the very same thing, the same house. It's just that your position, it's up the hill or is down the hill. So the translation here then, which was happening, is that these lecturers, others were fans of performance-based curriculum. So they wanted to use learning management system to demand that the learners should go to that, and then they had different quizzes that were forcing the student to go to that learning management system. But on the other hand, others were using Google Form, so they were using social media to deal with the teaching and learning. So which means now their translation from the position of social media sites and those who are coming from the prescribed learning management system that are prescribed by universities were not the same. So the translation now was that it depends where you were coming from. If you are coming from this side, you have another thing to say. If you come from the other side, you have another thing to say. So we were aware of what was happening there. So in your life then, when you deal with the issue of translation, how it applies that if you're a fan of performance-based curriculum, you think that people must translate any action as a good action if it is prescribed according to specific steps. But if you come from the competence-based curriculum, a fan of competence-based curriculum, opinion will be important to say, but my friends translated this thing to this thing and this and this, and therefore I don't like it because it has this and this. And you see, the translation will now depend on what the position you have. That's why last time I indicated that if you say is stealing good or bad, so you can't say stealing is good or bad if you don't know whose need that we are trying to address. So we need to know someone whose needs are being addressed. So if someone is a thief, therefore our starting point is to say stealing is good, so that we have access to this individually, to his objective reality, and then we negotiate our way to show him the other side. But if we start to say, we try to communicate with him and coming to him to criticize stealing, we are not going to have access to this individual. Rather, he will fight with us. So it now depends on who you are talking to and what exactly are you trying to address. If you deal with a thief, the first language that you need to learn is to say stealing is good, therefore let's interrogate it. Then the thief may transform. So transformation experience will start to kick in when this person is starting to translate what stealing is about. So that's what the translation is about. So it's about positioning yourself in different position, and then you interpret that thing. So in the case of a house, I may suggest that instead of looking at this house from the top of the hill or from the bottom of the hill, maybe just get inside the house and then write about the house while you are inside the house. So that's what may help you, because we'll see the details. That is what is called pragmatic way of doing it. Just get inside the house and see what is happening. So in other words, you need to go inside yourself and then try to understand, to say, what is happening to my heart? What is happening to my this? What is happening to my lungs, etc., etc., before you can start now to say you know who you are. So that's what translation is about. Rotation, it's about how they rotate their action. So in other words, moving in a circular way to say, I want to plan this thing. So is it the form of what you call action research? I plan the thing and then I rotate. I go to implementation where I implement it, and then I move to observe this thing, and then I move again to reflect on this thing, and then you keep on rotating. So if it is a house that we are dealing with, we may need a moving house so that we can rotate. We take it, we shift it to the west, to the east, to the north, to the south. That's what rotation is about. So our experiences then may also rotate like that, to say it started by praising the east, now today is praising the west, now is praising that. So that's what rotation experience was about. Enlightenment experience, which is a transformation experience, it was about those lecturers who were insisting of being in groups. When they were not in groups, they were affected by issues of stress, depression, etc., etc. But every day they had to phone someone and communicate with someone. That's enlargement. So they enlarge what they have as their individual. They want to enlarge to other people, so that every day they WhatsApp people, you see, something like that. That's when they could survive in their teaching. Without doing that, they were miserable, but they had to do that. That's enlightenment, transformation experience. In terms of reduction, and there were those who were in favor of private space, who did not want to be with other people because they want to concentrate on their activities that were important at that particular time. So when this lockdown came to place, they were happy that now is a time for us to have our private space. We needed this private space for quite a long time. So now for them, COVID-19 helped them to find their niche area where they are even enjoying today, because they are still using technology as if it's still the time of the lockdown. So then you'll see then, and then you start to reflect which of these 5 principles apply to you, and then you deal with them from that position. But in summarizing this paper, you could see there that what was important is that how they transform their experience. So in other words, how their conscious mind interrogated their subconscious thought in order to bring newness, which is the new reality they had. So their transformation was influenced by being the fans of competence-based curriculum, others being fans of performance-based curriculum. And then there are those who were in favor of values and needs that were following the pragmatic way of doing it. So in terms of concept then that were used, curriculum concept, the what was about what was prescribed, and the time, what time they had for their instructions. And then they also had strict objectives around their teaching. They had strict prescribed resources. And then, so if you ask them to say, what resource do you use? They were prescribed somewhere. They gave us documents to say, look at that, here's my plan for teaching. And then you could see there what is the content, what timing, objectives, resources, and assessment. But those who were coming from the competence-based curriculum, who are dealing with the how part, how things are happening. So for them, they were talking about learning activities that were important, that we always have to have learning activities here, and then those learning activities help learners to achieve the outcomes. There were outcomes when we facilitating the community of practice. Even if they're at home at a distance, they could learn because we're using WhatsApp, etc., different social media sites. But those then who were pragmatists, then for them, they indicated specific values that they were working around to say, we are talking about creativity, integrity, problem-centeredness, tolerance, etc., etc. There were different, then we started to categorize these values according to the three categories, and then the fourth category came in later, but these were important. We categorize them like this to say those who were fans of competence-based curricula, they were always talking about the enlargement values, like that democratic way of doing things, helping one another without going to what is prescribed. So when they started to use Zoom, they did not want a formal training, but rather they wanted friends to train. See, so we were one of those friends who, with Dr. Mbung, was where we had to train them how to do this. But they did, and we generated a manual for Zoom and other technologies, but they rejected the manual and said, no, please run this every Wednesday. I want to talk to you about this, you see. So they wanted us to be in groups. So democratic values, etc., were part of that. But there are others who were using learning management system, who were the fans of learning management system, because these ones here were fans of a social media site to say, I'll WhatsApp you, I will use my Facebook, or Twitter, all those. But these ones here were strictly using learning management system. So for them, it was easy because they were just dealing with the modules that were already uploaded via their learning management system. So they started to translate translation values that were coming there. They are categorized in the paper. You can read them, which are those that are translation values, and which are those that are enlargement values like collaboration and others. And then, but those who were worried about the needs of what was happening, the needs of the people during that time, they were mostly reflecting on what they were doing and rotating it, keep on changing it, rotating it nicely so that if they've used this part facing east, they have to rotate it to face north or west or something like that. And then they also had something like the reduction. So reduction for them was that they wanted their own private space more than the space with other people, because that's where they thought they were performing well. And then in terms of the natural actions then, so, you know, this was a natural phenomena, which is COVID-19. Therefore, we needed to use all the fourth industrial revolution resources like internet of things, robotic technology, video tech, all those were useful during the time of the COVID-19. That's what we heard about that. So then we conclude that by bringing back this natural identity framework. So here's the framework that we mostly use when we are stuck with something, because What it's saying is that it's not taking a side, whether you are taking a side of competence-based, or you take a side of performance-based, or you take a side of a pragmatic way of doing things. But it's saying that as long as you identify and understand who you are, and then use your strength to teach, therefore, when you use your strength, you will be able to keep on reflecting, which is re-reflecting. Then you'll be able to start now to address the issue of why this thing is like this. Because the world is about that. It's about addressing the philosophical question, which is why things are like this. So when you complete your master's, I'm sure, because what your master's will do will combine this and this. Most of your study maybe will be talking about this and that and little bit of this. But when you come back that other year, the following year, and then you start to say, you want us to supervise you when you are doing your PhD, we'll start here because we'll assume that you know this, you know what professionals are saying in capturing us. When they say meat is healthy, then everyone will eat meat because we believe in them. Even if we are allergic to meat, we'll eat meat because we believe in them. Same thing applies our society there. If they say, when you eat meat, meat makes men, we'll start to say, okay, because my grandmother said that, or my grandfather said that. We are not going to question, we don't question this. The opinion from society or the facts from our professionals, we don't question them. But what will be important then for you right now, now that you are aware that you should not be a victim of this or a victim of this, but you should rather be a victim of this, because this one is closer to your objective reality. So that when people start to say, are you getting quality education? Then you start to say quality for who? Whose quality are we referring to? When people say, is stealing good or bad? Is it good or bad to who? Whose needs are we addressing here? You see, you ask the question of who, because no one has a manual of being a human being in this world. That's why we have our unique identity. So we are more than 7 billion in this world. So each one of us has his or her own identity. You can see the example. Look at your fingerprints. No one in this world will ever have the same fingerprint as that one of yours. That shows that we are not the same. Even the animals are not the same. They are different. Therefore, if that is the case, we have a task then to understand who we are as different from the other billion people in this world. Then when we work from there, we have chances of working naturally, of following what we followed when we were born. Because when we were born, we were following this natural identity. We were natural in what we were doing. Until the society starts now to give us information about their own activities, then we believe them, we followed them. And then professionals, when we went to school, they gave us their own side of the coin. Then we followed them, we believed them. So it's easy for us to believe. So if it is easy like that, you can see then that we may chase what other people are doing all the way and realize later that no, this is not me, but this is John or this is Lindy. So when you follow someone else's identity, you keep on chasing that individual. But by the time you see what is happening, then you start now to track back what happened to you, what happened to your natural identity you had when you were born. That's what we are striving to do. So with same thing applies here. We are using this curriculum to understand the professional identity from performance-based curriculum, while those in leadership, they understand it through instructional leadership. And then we also try to understand this competence-based curriculum through societal identity, where then those in leadership will understand it through transformational leadership. Those in research will understand that through interpretivist paradigm. But what is important then is that while you are aware of this and this, you need to come to a stage where you start now to say, I've grown enough. Using other people's user interface, because what we are using from your community is just the user interface. Those beliefs there are just the user interface. But you need to come to a stage when you've grown enough to start to say, okay, I have enough knowledge now about myself. Then I don't eat meat because I'm allergic to it. Therefore, I want that to be recorded somewhere or to be debated somewhere, some platforms where I would have to present my case of being allergic to meat, while society is praising meat and the professionals are praising meat. But for me, I have another experience. Therefore, that's where you come now to a position where you understand your internal intelligence and then understand that people translate things from their different perspectives. When someone is translating something from here or translating from here, surely these two individuals will have a conflict. So if you want to distance yourself from those fights between professional identity and societal identity, you need to position yourself there from the personal identity, where you start now to reflect on what need to be done. When people start to say, this is good, then good to who? Oh, okay, if it is good to that particular individual, then you start to contribute to help them to see that no, they are not fighting, but they are translating this in different positions. That's translation experience. So those are the issues, colleagues, that are covered in these particular papers, of which then you will just have to read more.